Hello. So today I'm gonna be answering a question that one of my subscribers sent me, and it's a very hard question to answer. So I'm going to try to be really slow and careful so I don't miss any details. And the question is, free will. Do we have free will? And also, is everything predetermined or is there free will? And this question is like a very debated question for most of human history, I assume. And I think the Buddha gives us the most satisfying answer on this question. And I'm gonna try to use the framework he discovered to try to give you a satisfying answer to this question, to the subscriber in question and anyone who might have been wondering, do we have free will or is it just deterministic? So first, the quick answer is it's neither deterministic nor is it completely free, right? That's just the quick answer. That's why the Buddha called it the middle way, right? It avoids both extremes, but now I'm gonna go into detail of what does that actually mean. So, first what does deterministic mean, right? It means that the outcome is predetermined and there's nothing one can do about it, that everything is just predetermined and it's gonna unfold the same way no matter what. The future cannot be meaningfully influenced, it's all predetermined. The second extreme is it's all completely freely chosen, so you choose what happens to you. Now, both of these things are extremes, and I'm gonna explain why both of them are not necessarily true, because what it actually is, and if you actually investigate thoroughly your own experience and mind, you can see that it's conditioned. What does that mean, conditioned, right? So beings tend to have tendencies, right? For example, maybe you like to smoke. So you can either choose to smoke or you can choose to resist the tendency to smoke, and then that tendency will weaken. What I'm trying to say is each being is sort of like their own conditioned causal system, right? And causes condition outcomes, but conditions can be meaningfully influenced. Like I said, let's say if you give in to anger, you'll experience more anger in the future. If you know this and choose to resist giving in to anger, the said tendency will weaken and you will experience less anger in the future. Basically, everyone has their own conditioned tendencies that shape how things are perceived, seen, what sort of feeling arises from them, what sort of mental activity happens. So yes, there is no absolute control over thought, but the system constantly sort of gets conditioned by new things. For example, you hear the Buddha's teaching and put it into practice. Suddenly, if that didn't happen, perhaps you would have gone down one trajectory, but because that happened, you can choose to change your conditions. There can be a choice there, and your whole future trajectory changes. So it's like with the current conditions, there is a certain future you're heading to, but the system constantly gets reconditioned and said future changes. So it's like the future is not predetermined, it's not fixed, there's a sort of flexibility, right? And knowing conditionality, which is wisdom, can meaningfully change the outcome of your future, right? So it's not predetermined in the sense where it's completely inflexible and unable to change, because conditions constantly change your future outcome. Like, if you run into something, it can drastically change your future outcome than if you didn't. So it's clearly flexible. That's why practice is possible. That's the whole point of the Buddhist path, is where cultivating certain things such as mindfulness, investigation, concentration, understanding of the teachings can meaningfully change one's trajectory. So it is flexible and it can change. So there's no actual predetermined destiny, but that is, it's not purely deterministic, but there's no free will in the sense of, if you hear the teachings, how you're gonna take them, right? That depends on your current conditions, right? How conditions further condition your continuity depends on your current conditions. Excuse me. So, does that make sense? Saying it's predetermined means there's nothing you can do, right? Saying there's free will doesn't really make sense, because even if you make a choice, what are you gonna base the choice on? Then, like, the choice is gonna be conditioned, right? It's gonna it's not gonna be free, right? So there, like, either it's conditioned, which means it's not free will, or it's completely random, which means it's just random, it's not free will. So free will, even if you just, like, you can directly see conditioning of your own mind running. When, like, you see something, immediately it gives a feeling, it gives a perception, and your mind tries to organize itself around it, either chase it, avoid it, right? That's conditioning running. But Buddhism does something interesting. It sort of conditions an awareness of conditionality, and that allows the being to go against, that allows the continuity. Like, I don't want to propose there's some sort of controller there. Basically, understanding conditions the capacity to sort of resist conditioning and let certain conditions unwind and not influence, and that can drastically change your trajectory. So it's not a fixed future. There's definitely things that can be done, like mindfulness can be established, investigation can happen, and that can change your conditions meaningfully enough where your future completely changes than it would before. But it's not completely free, because, well, your choices are conditioned, right? Conditioned by understanding, conditioned by, well, that's called karma, conditioning, right? Do you understand what conditioning is? It's basically, let's say and again, I'm gonna do weed because I did struggle with weed, right? So you smoke for the first time and you like it, but the tendency is not strong, right? Maybe you're not gonna continue smoking, but then you run into it again, and because of previously liking it, you say, you know what, fuck it, I'll do it again. And then it becomes like momentum, and now suddenly you're conditioned to smoke, right? But then when the mind notices this tendency and understands the consequences, which is understanding, wisdom, it can sort of go against it. It can be like the tendency may arise, but the mind chooses not to act it out due to there being an understanding. So whereas if the Buddha's teaching wasn't encountered and that understanding wasn't there, the trajectory might have been of addiction. Because that understanding was there, suddenly it's not fixed to be addiction. It can actually be addressed, resisted, and eventually ended. So it's not fixed as in determinism, because it's not one giant predetermined system, but many streams of conditioned continuities interacting and conditioning each other, which means no set continuity has a predetermined future. Conditions simply influence the response of that continuity to what's going on, to other conditions. So practice works. That's the whole magic of the Buddha's path, is like conditions can be meaningfully influenced and changed, and so can your future destination. I hope that answered it, whereas it's not predetermined because it's a little more flexible than that. Conditionality can be influenced, and conditions can change, so your future outcome changes, but it's not fully free because it's conditioned. It's influenced by conditioning. So it's somewhere in the middle, not predetermined, has some sort of flexibility, and practice can meaningfully change it, but not fully free, because a fully free choice doesn't even logically make sense. But at least it's not fatalistic. At least once you understand conditionality, there can be some sort of effort put into resisting certain tendencies, like abandoning unwholesome, unskillful tendencies, and cultivating an understanding of what's wholesome and cultivating wholesome tendencies. So definitely what conditions your stream of continuity can meaningfully change your future destination or direction, which means it was never predetermined in some sort of ultimate sense, but never fully free in some sort of ultimate sense. Hence why the Buddha called it the middle way, right? Thanks for watching. See you in another video.